Muchísimas gracias. Pues bueno, ahora vamos a continuar con el siguiente participante. La siguiente participante es Gabriela Pardo Mendoza. Ella es antropóloga física de la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México y va a presentar su proyecto titulado Ese no soy yo, el empleo malicioso de deepfakes, perdón, y su mitigación en entornos legales para la gobernanza de la inteligencia artificial. Adelante, Gabriela, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mitch. Okay, I'm going to share my presentation with you in English. And the translation of the title of my project is That Is Not Me, Malicious Use of Deepfakes and Their Mitigation in Legal Frameworks of AI Governance. So let's continue with this. I begin this topic with a scenario. Imagine it's the middle of the US presidential elections and you're scrolling the next and suddenly you see a viral video of Kamala Harris making harmful statements against President Joe Biden. But after a few moments, you realize the video was a deepfake made with artificial intelligence. But it gets worse because Elon Musk shared that video as if it were real. So I'm going to stop here to tell you that this scenario wasn't a real thing. It was fake. It actually happened just last year. I said, could you imagine? This is a great example of how dangerous deepfakes could be because people behind their creation can create the illusion that somebody say or did something that didn't happen. So this is why the misuse of this technology could be really harmful. Okay, with the support of reported data, we saw that this is an urgent topic of AI governance. For example, this graph shows the colossal rise in deepfake incidents over 7 years, starting from its first appearance on 2017 to just last year. Forbes even called 20 and 24 the year of deepfakes. Just imagine this. And what's more, previous data showed that from 2017 to 2020, over 100 million deepfake videos were uploaded online. And these deepfake videos were shared more than 5 billion times on YouTube alone. That is not just a number, it's a massive spread of false information, which is too important because misinformation is predicted to be the top global threat for 2027, and we are only 2 years away from that. This is why we can highlight the urgency to combat this growing global threat, mainly because institutions haven't recognized AI as a potential catastrophic risk. So we need to move on and change the panorama with the help of governance frameworks. For the previous reasons, this study aims to identify the current gaps in AI governance frameworks targeted to prevent the malicious use of deepfakes. And to achieve that objective, the specific ones were to identify keywords from deepfake definitions, to create a database of AI governance documents from leading countries in AI regulation and development, to finally conduct to the identification of the previous deepfake keywords within selected AI governance documents. Now, I'm sorry. Now let's move to the methods of this project that were divided into 4 main steps. First of all, we collected 39 deepfake definitions and used Python to extract keywords from them. And secondly, we analyzed 16 AI governance documents from the Global AI Governance Observatory, and we selected them based on 2 main aspects: in the country and topic selection. For the countries, they were selected by the AI development, plus how complete the governance frameworks are, and also how these countries could influence the global south regions. And the chosen ones were the United Kingdom, Germany, China, Australia, and the United States. Now, going to the case of topic selection, we picked just one topic based on its official recognition by legal frameworks, because that documents have been made by consensus among key stakeholders, and the chosen was AI legislation status. When we already had this part complete, then we used a mixed methods approach. In one hand, the quantitative analysis as the third step, And this step was really important because we created a database in Google Sheets with the full text of each document. Then we cleaned the data and used Python to identify and count keywords related to deepfakes. Finally, we have the fourth step in which we added a qualitative approach to understand the context of those keywords, basically to check out if the documents had a relation to deepfakes or not by creating categories to interpret what each document was talking about. With the previous described methods, now I'm moving to the results for being shared with you all. Mainly for the quantitative outcomes, we made this graph that shows how often deepfake keywords appeared in documents from the UK, Australia, Germany, China, and the US, the previous countries I mentioned before, as we could see on the vertical axis and on this graph. And the data organization was made to see the frequency of these words along the horizontal axis to see how many times each keyword was mentioned in the selected AI governance frameworks, with the numbers growing on a logarithmic scale. We made it in this way because it makes easier to see all the data organized, even when the differences between this were very big, because the UK only had one word alone repeated more than 1,000 times. That was too much. So don't you think so? Well, this word was content, which is represented by the orange bar, as you could see. The other keywords were words such as content, text, real, or image, represented by other color selection. So these findings show that most of the identified keywords were too general or abstract. What does that mean? It means that these words can be found in many different topics. I mean, even we found keywords inside the documents, it doesn't mean they were really talking about deepfakes. So that's why these words alone doesn't give us the full picture. But just by this data, we saw that the case of the US showed less keywords frequency than the other countries because we didn't find enough available documents to analyze. And this could be related to the current changes of the political agenda of this country. By other hand, we have other fascinating results because only one document clearly mentions the word deepfake. And that mention was from the UK frameworks, and also the case of Chinese documents had the word synthetic as the most mentioned keyword, followed by media and content. And this might be related to deepfakes, even if they don't mention or say the word directly, like the case of the UK. That's why we need to go a step further and check the context to really understand what the documents were talking about. Okay, this means that we looked closely at the context of the keywords we found. And from that, we created 6 categories to group the different topics that were treated in the documents. The first one was generative artificial intelligence, which was the one who was explicitly related to deepfakes, followed by personal data protection, online security, misinformation, gender-based attacks, and fraud or scam. As you can see in the table, on this table, out of the 16 documents we studied, only 3 of them had a clear and direct connection to deepfakes. They either mention the word itself or discuss the specific issues strongly related to this topic. Now, let's take a look at how the documents relate to deepfakes, which was crucial to achieve the main goal of this project. On one hand, we had the case of the United Kingdom, where one document had the only explicit mention of deepfakes, and this one was directly tied to the creation of non-consensual synthetic pornography. And it's also interesting that the UK has a clear definition of image that includes digitally modified content, which is a good step forward. But even this approach, their frameworks are still having gaps because this country doesn't seem to address other important issues caused by deepfakes, such as misinformation, scams, and manipulation that needs an urgent attendance. On the other hand, China is actually a pioneer when it comes to legislation on deepfakes or synthetic content because their laws already consider the manipulation of face, voice, and even body movements, something most countries haven't addressed yet. And not only this, because they also require that AI generated content must be labeled so people know when they are seeing something synthetic. For a closer to this project, the conclusions are that China are currently leading in deepfake regulation, and they are adopting an holistic approach that includes technical, educational, and social action to fight against the misuse of deepfakes or other harmful synthetic content. Another conclusion is that the United Kingdom focuses its legal frameworks mainly on deepfake pornography, leaving gaps in addressing other threats like misinformation. And finally, most of the analyzed legal frameworks do not mention deepfakes explicitly, but they do address other related issues, showing that the response is still fragmented and incomplete. And that's why we suggest that most of the analyzed legal AI frameworks are not too prepared to fight against this increasing problem. As future directions to continue in the efforts to do something against misuse of deepfakes or for searching purposes, we already know our research and the repository we used had its own limitation or biases. So it's possible that some relevant legal frameworks or documents were not included in this analysis. So this opens the door for future research by looking at other governance policies, countries, topics, or even sources beyond legal frameworks. And for future research on deepfakes, it's really important to agree on a clear definition to make it easier to report the incidents and other sources and this stuff, and help to improve the rules and systems we use to deal with their misuse and improve AI governance. And finally, it's also important to know that to having approaches with intersectional responses, because we recognize that deepfakes in general affects different social groups in different ways. And these were the references for the building of this project. I'd like to thank everybody and to thank Carreras con Impacto team. I'm totally open to hear your comments or questions. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, Gabriela, y felicidades también por tu presentación. Dejamos unos minutitos para personas que deseen hacerle alguna pregunta a Gabriela, ya sea que abran su micrófono o le escriban por el chat.
Creo que no. No sé,
Creo
yo estoy
que
abierta.
Lo mío no es
Responder.
una pregunta, perdóname.
Claro.
Solamente es como para decir que felicitaciones por tu proyecto y que es muy
Gracias.
interesante.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Jaime.
Gaby, yo tengo una duda. Pues también confirmo, pues concuerdo con Jaime, súper buena la presentación, súper interesante el tema. Tú mencionabas
Gracias,
que
vale.
China está como adelantada como de esas cosas, pues tiene como muy buena regulación.
Sí.
Pues la verdad yo no me imaginé que China fuera, pues como que en la regulación estuviera tan avanzada. ¿Tú sabes si de pronto ellos tienen como algún departamento que se dedique pues justamente como a la inteligencia artificial o pues, o sea, porque están como tan adelantados? No sé si te pongas pues como alguna idea sobre eso.
Claro, es muy interesante porque ellos tienen su departamento de ciberseguridad, pero también tienen una agencia dedicada al estudio del ciberespacio. Entonces, ellos tienen una idea general, en primer lugar, de poder educar a la población en general en temas de ciberseguridad, pero también estas agencias tienen o albergan muchos recursos de investigación y de desarrollo de tecnología que permita entender que estamos en un nuevo paradigma y que la inteligencia artificial se está posicionando como un aspecto muy importante que pues prácticamente ya forma parte de la cotidianidad. Entonces están un paso adelante desde mi perspectiva y es muy interesante realmente si en alguna oportunidad pues tienen algún acercamiento con información interesante sobre estos tópicos, estaría increíble. De hecho, hay muchas investigaciones que se han dedicado a pues hacer como estas revisiones sobre sí, los marcos gubernamentales de China en materia de inteligencia artificial.
Súper, muchísimas gracias.
A ti, vale.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela. Yo tengo una duda a partir de lo que acaba de decir también Valentina, y
Claro.
es, muchas veces se tiene toda una discusión alrededor de la parte de gobernanza e inteligencia artificial o la creación de estos documentos, sobre todo para ver a quién van a ir dirigidos, a quién se debe de comunicar, quiénes son los que deben ir como que al frente en hacer estas propuestas o estas regulaciones, ya sea una institución que ya está formada, crear su propia institución y demás. Con estos análisis que estuviste haciendo, ¿hay alguien que tú hayas visto, bueno, se están posicionando más allá como de país, pero a lo mejor no sé, algún tipo de
Mm.
institución o demás que se esté posicionando justamente para poder responder esta pregunta, sea deepfake, no solamente en este nicho que muchas veces se hace exclusivamente, o bueno, no exclusivamente, pero mayoritariamente en la parte a lo mejor de como pornografía y no tanto en la parte de difusión de información falsa, ¿no? Y otras
Sí.
áreas.
Sí, claro, es que también existe mucha amplitud sobre los temas o sobre la manera en la que pueden causar daño los deepfakes, tal y como dijiste. Por ejemplo, la UNESCO ha tenido reportes relacionados con la parte de la generación de contenido y pornografía no consensuada y también, por ejemplo, en la propagación de información falsa, también en otros aspectos como las elecciones políticas, entre otras tantas cosas. Y recientemente con las elecciones presidenciales de los Estados Unidos vimos un incremento en estos incidentes precisamente para generar contenido pues meramente político. Entonces, eh, justamente creo que hay muchas instituciones, o más bien de acuerdo con las investigaciones que hice a lo largo de estos 4 meses, instituciones como UNESCO, ONU, e incluso agencias de seguridad como FBI, Homeland Security y otras tantas han posicionado sus preocupaciones sobre el problema de deepfakes, pero muchas veces vemos fragmentada esta parte de la comunicación de las instituciones, ONGs u organismos con la parte legal. Entonces, creo que es muy importante que podamos atender estos diálogos para generar y mejorar las políticas de gobernanza en materia de inteligencia artificial.
Muchísimas gracias, Gabriela. Te agradezco mucho. Tu presentación también fue increíble.
Muchas
Em,
gracias.
si alguien más tiene alguna última pregunta, la pueden hacer en este momento. Si no, sí, adelante, Silvia.
Solo como para retomar un poco los resultados de tu proyecto, y en general para Valentina y para los demás, pues también aquí hay que tener como un poco de cuidado sobre como esa generalización como de qué tan avanzado puede estar un país, en este caso por el tema de, bueno, pues las limitaciones que puede haber, ¿no? Que Gabriela, tal vez pueda hablar un poco sobre eso, pues en general, el número de documentos que se revisan, hay documentos que están perdidos, entonces,
Sí.
para que tenga como ahí, un poco este, de, sí, como notas al pie de página, ¿no? Sobre este tipo de resultados, pero en general sí están súper, súper padres. Felicidades, Gabriela.
Sí, gracias. Y claramente, pues, ay, disculpe. Claramente hay algunos documentos que no pudieron ser revisados precisamente porque dentro de este repositorio algunos links estaban caídos, muchos cambios en las agendas políticas de los países también requieren estas nuevas reformas, las transformaciones de las leyes. Entonces también no se trata únicamente de un análisis de elementos estáticos, sino que son dinámicos, están en constante cambio y también es importante, sí, como dice Miguel, poner eso como al pie y también dejarlo para futuras propuestas e investigaciones que puedan hacerse en materia de estos tópicos.
Excelente. Muchísimas gracias, Gabriela. Bueno, pues entonces vamos a ir pasando por cuestiones de tiempo ya con nuestro último participante.